Formerly enslaved Frank Childress, age 84, and Nathan Best, age 92, served in the Civil War on the Confederate side. This entitled them to a retirement place at Bovar Confederate Soldiers' Home and former home of Jefferson Davis. We will hear from Nathan Best. I was born May 19, 1845 in North Carolina. My old master's name was Henry Best, but I was in the service with his youngest son, Rufus Best. My father's name was Nathan Best. I was named after him, and my mother's name was Maria. We was all Besses. I had a sister named Sarah Ann and a brother named Snowvine. There were so many of them, I don't know if I can name them now. There was 15 in all. I married in 1867. My wife was named Hester. She didn't belong to my old master, but to Dr. Sear. His plantation was about 7 miles from ours. She died. I had a second wife named Nancy. She had been dead now about 10 years. That was before I come here. I has been here for 6 years. My old master's house didn't have no name, but the servants called it the Great House. It had a long hall, clean crossed it, and rooms on each side of the hall. The dining room was about 30 feet long. It was built off separate. The house was painted white. It was a 2-story house with big posts in front. A big, fine house. The quarters was about a quarter of a mile long. The cabins was on each side of the street. My master had 101 slaves. We was 3 miles from Snow Hill, the county seat. We weren't on no railroad. We was way back in the country. 12 miles was the nearest railroad they was. My mistress' name was Maria, too. She had 8 children, 2 gals and 6 boys. All her sons went to the war except one. We raised cotton, corn, peas, and everything. My old master run 16 plows every day. He had 25 or 30 heads of horses and mules. He had a tickler saddle horse and a tickler buggy horse. They didn't do nothing but carry him round. My mother worked on the farm, and my father stayed in the woods and run turpentine. My master run a big farm and worked turpentine, too. My master was good to me while he lived, but after he died, I cotched it. They was just talking about they was going to be a war when he died. Then his oldest son, Marsh Bob, drawed me from the state. He was good to me himself, but they hired an overseer. He couldn't hear good, so they exempted him from the war. He was mighty mean. I don't know how many times he did whoop me. He would come out of a morning and want to whip everything he seen. This overseer wasn't born rich. He was a poor man. Just had a house way back in the woods. One time he hung me up in a pear tree and whooped me 'cause I had stuck a knife in a girl's arm. She got mad at me and slapped me in the mouth, and I had this old knife and stuck it in her arm. They put me in the service when I was 8 years old. They put me to following the stock. They run out in the big woods, and they had to follow them to keep them from breaking into folks' fields. I ran away once. I didn't start to go nowhere, just laid out in the woods, hiding from the overseer. He come down the street in the quarters that morning, just a beating and a whooping, and the niggers were all crying and a screaming. And before he got to where I was had done left and hid in the woods. My old mistress thought that the overseer had killed me, and she told him not to bother me if I was found. Old mistress was mean too. She would tell the overseer to whoop the niggers, but she didn't allow him to kill none of us, 'cause that would lose her money. Well, they found me and took me to the great house, but they didn't whoop me. They shipped me off from that place over to her son's plantation. He was married off, and his place was about 3 miles from old mistress. The war had been going on about a year and a half when I went with my master's youngest brother, Rufus. I stayed in it then till it ended. I was in a heap of battles, but I can't remember none of their names except Petersburg and Richmond. My master never did get wounded. One time, a bullet went under his arm and tore a bundle away, but it didn't hurt him. My master was a captain, and they didn't rush the rich folks to the front to fight. They rushed the poor folks in first. I was in the big battle at Petersburg. I was carrying a dispatch for Captain Jordan. He was over our camp to a colonel about 3 miles away, and my horse fell down and broke my arm so bad they had to catch me and take me to the hospital and have it took off. I wasn't at Richmond. My master got a furlough to see about his mother just a few days before, but he just done it to shun that heavy battle. He kept bushwhacking along, and we never did get to Richmond. Every place the Yankees took, they told the colored folks they ain't got no more master and no more mistress, and to go about their business. They destroyed the stock and took what money they could find. They destroyed the stuff too. I seen them pull the plug out of a barrel of molasses and pour it in the road. The Yankees told us to go to a big city, New Bern, North Carolina. The slaves went there by hundreds and hundreds, whole train loads. And when we got there, they dumped us out. And they wasn't no houses for us to stay in. They just hauled us out to a big battleground called Fort Totten. And there they dump us out on the bare ground, hundreds and hundreds of niggers. We got stakes and drive deep down in the ground and peeled off bark to make us shelters. After they dump us out, they tell us to go down to a place. I had forgot the name of it. And there we had draw some grub. They was a Yankee there. They called him the Progo Master. And he give us our hardtacks and codfish and old pink beefs that was left from the army. We stayed there and ate that till fall, and then the Progo Marshal let us go, told us we could go back to our old house, and he gave us tickets on the train. I went back to the master and stayed with him 3 years. He paid me $3.50 a month, and he fed us from his table. I worked on farms all my life and in turpentine as long as I was able to work. After a while, I went to Georgia and worked mostly in turpentine. I stayed there for a long time. The first station I landed at in Georgia was Millwood. The next big town to it was Albany. I worked turpentine there for 12 years, and then I went to Crawford County and worked turpentine. I come to Mississippi 30 years ago, to Ocean Springs. For a long time, I worked for Mr. Harry Woodman at Van Cleve. Then I live in Biloxi. I plowed around there for people. I had a team of my own. I just went round town and plowed folks' gardens for them. I just got a pension for 2 years before I came here. It was only $40 a year. I went to the reunion in Montgomery, and they told me I better get in the home, if and $40 a year was all I was getting. Yes, I voted for about 5 years after the war. I voted at Snow Hill, that was in Greene County, and voted once in Georgia. None of my colored friends ever even got elected to office, no more than a county commissioner. I quit voting because they franchised us out of voting. I thought them was good days in the country, for they franchised us. I has seen Ku Kluxes, and I has run from 'em. They sought after me, but they didn't get me. They were after us just 'cause we was free. They killed up several of the colored folks. They would get after 'em in the night. I belongs to the Methodist Church. I joined in 1866. We went to our master's church in slavery time. He was a Methodist, and all his colored folks were Methodists. All them that belonged to church. I takes the bus home going to church in Biloxi most every Sunday. I don't go every Sunday. I raised a garden and sells the stuff. I used to sell the biggest part of it right here at the home. They gives me $2 a month spending money now. I don't know what they gwine to do. They talks about quitting that. I got 3 children living so far, as I knows. I got a daughter in Biloxi and a son in Canton, Ohio. He works in a bank. He been working there for 15 years. Then I has another son in Louisiana. I forgets the name of they place. I likes it pretty well here, but I would like it better if and they just give me enough money, enough pension, so I could live at home.